Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast. My name is Victoria. My throat's a little scratchy. I've just gotten over the flu, but I'm so delighted to be here. And on the show today, I have someone by the name of Alina Wilson. She is a mother, a grandmother, an entrepreneur, employee development coach, philanthropist, and advocate for women's empowerment. Her life's work is shaped by one goal. Don't you love that? To help women like you discover and embrace their true beauty, both inside and out. As a mother and grandmother, she has developed a profound understanding of the complexities of womanhood and the importance of self-discovery and self-acceptance. As a successful entrepreneur, she has mentored dozens of women and founded the Bridgeport Laser and Wellness Center, a successful wellness clinic. In 2007, growing Bridgeport into what it is today has proved to be the ideal container for her skills as an employee development coach. She's proud to have helped so many individuals unlock their full potential and thrive in their careers. But Alina is also a dedicated philanthropist. She serves on the board of directors for the Portland-based organization Gather, Make, Shelter. And she is a writer, of course, who inspires and empowers women to embrace their unique beauty and live authentically. All of who Alina is and what she has accomplished is a testament to the transformative power of embracing one's true beauty and living with purpose and passion. She hopes to continue to be a beacon of hope and inspiration for women everywhere. And we're going to talk today on the show about her book called Thoughtful Aging. Alina is such a dear, dear spirit. You're going to be impressed by how she articulates things that are like even the nature and the concept of beauty in ways maybe you haven't quite imagined. But we don't stay stuck in just theory and the philosophy of it all. Instead, she's also going to give you some powerful tips on what you can do when you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I don't know about all this. And it's so much more than this, because I use that kind of as an example during our conversations. Hey, how would you advise this person? Where do we go from here? I tried to draw it back down to the practicality of it all. But one of the central purposes in her mission is to increase that self-awareness and to start the dialogue really going, to get it going about who you are, your purpose, your identity, what beauty really has to do with all of it. So you're in for a real treat. It's a interesting kind of conversation that we have. And I think you're going to enjoy her very soft-spoken presentation and non-judgmental, but quite encouraging and affirming of who God created you to be. You're going to love that aspect of her personality. So without further ado, here is the author of Thoughtful Aging, Alina Wilson. Welcome, Alina, to the Choose to Think podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was so good to have you here today. And I'm super pumped about the topic. But before we go into all of that, just tell us maybe a little bit about you and even why you decided to write your book on thoughtful aging.
Sure. I own a medical aesthetics clinic, so we do skincare, cosmetic services, what would be conventional anti-aging treatments, and we'll talk more about that word in a minute, and wellness care for women. I started this 18 years ago, and it became quickly apparent to me in this industry that as women, we have the ability to see beauty in others, but not ourselves. And I realized that there's such a gap there, and it got me thinking about why is that? Why can we see beauty in others and not ourselves? And so over the past 18 years, I've had thousands of conversations with women about aging, about health, about wellness, about beauty. And this book that I wrote, Thoughtful Aging, is actually my attempt to shift this paradigm from the unattainable anti-aging towards something that is more values-based, character-based, what I call thoughtful aging,
Mm,
aging with intention.
yes. And, I had never really given a lot of thought even to that phrase, anti-aging. But that's so curious, isn't it? How the pursuit seems to not age. It's against aging. So could you unpack that just a little bit? And what did you discover about that particular word?
The negativity is inherent in the word itself, anti-aging. We as women have been taught to believe that youthfulness equates to beauty. And because we hold that belief, whether it's conscious or subconscious, we are in a constant state of comparison, in a constant state of need, in a constant state of looking for flaws, seeing aging as something negative rather than positive, when really it couldn't be more opposite of that. Aging is such a beautiful process. And unfortunately, we don't realize that until we're in our 50s and 60s and even 70s. And that's when it comes full circle. But my goodness, we've lost so much time and opportunity to develop ourselves into the wise women that I know God meant us to be, because we're allowing ourselves to be distracted by these untruths.
Is there any balance in here? Because, and what I mean by that, Alina, is, my generation, I just think of all the hangups I've had from day one. And maybe some of those are not even in my conscious thinking at all. The comparison, the pressure, but yet, and there were several years ago, I guess I made this mental shift saying, I don't want to like weigh a certain number, or, I want to feel a certain way instead. I want to be fit. I want to be agile. I want to be strong, so I can run with my grandchildren, so I can play pickleball, do all the things that I love to do, take walks and exercise with my husband, but not for the sake of kind of becoming something or looking a certain way, but instead I want a feeling of strength. But yet I've got lipstick on right now. I have, I pulled my hair back. I want to look professional. I also have that tug of war where I want to look good. I don't know by whose standards I've raised that banner, but I still feel kind of both sides of that. Is that kind of just normal? Or, I mean, I don't think that you're saying now we have license just to look like a slob and go about and not take care of ourselves and that sort of thing, all because we're focused on inner beauty instead, for example, or wisdom instead. I guess this is a roundabout way of trying to ask a question about where is the balance? Like, what's okay to be concerned about regarding our physical appearance versus where do we take it too far? Does that make sense at all?
Mm-hmm. It does. And right and wrong has no place in the conversation of beauty. And what you're talking about is trying to apply morality to one's personal sense of beauty. So you're wearing a pink lipstick today. My mother would never wear anything that showed any colors. She would only wear something clear. But to her, that signifies beauty. To another dear friend that I have, she wears red all the time. Red is beautiful to her. And I've met very few women who have the confidence to pull off a red lipstick. So right and wrong has no place in the conversation of beauty. If we can take a step back and view makeup, for example, just simply as social currency, as a way to navigate a superficial world, as a way to self-express that allows us to access different versions of ourselves. I feel a lot different wearing red lipstick than I do wearing pink. Mm-hmm. And there's no right and wrong in that. It's just simply a difference in how I feel in the way that I choose to present myself on any given day. It would do us well if we could, as a society of women, get to a place where we can make these choices out of want rather than out of need. Anytime you're making a decision, you're looking in the mirror and you see your reflection and you say, I need to fix this wrinkle, or I need to put on makeup today. You're in a reactive state. You're doing those things because you've been conditioned to do them and led to believe that if you don't, there will be a negative outcome. On the other hand, if you can get to a place where you see your reflection in the mirror and you say, I want to wear makeup, I want to do something different about the way I appear, then you're operating from a place of choice. And that's operating in alignment, meaning that you're making that decision because it's genuine and authentic to you and your desires, rather than a decision that's been influenced by either a negative thought pattern or simply societal conditioning.
I mean, when I put on my lipstick, we'll just keep going with the lipstick.
Okay.
I don't think I'm not sure whether I consciously was thinking I need to wear lipstick or I want to wear lipstick. I think it probably presents a little bit better, like I'm maybe a tad more prepared, but I'm not sure if that's a want or a need necessarily. I think it's just kind of what I do. Now, would the world end if I didn't put on any lipstick, or if I wore my hair differently, or don't have, cheeks, with makeup on them? I don't think so. But I guess for me at my age, I haven't maybe figured out that sweet spot. I mean, I don't always feel like I need to wear makeup. I don't have that compulsion. In fact, my husband would say, don't wear any makeup. You don't have to wear any makeup. But I feel a little bit better. Now, I don't know whether I'm feeling a little bit better when I do because of maybe a bad motive or a bad reason. I don't know. I just think it's what I might prefer. But I guess I haven't really uncovered some of this. I don't know. Talk a little bit more about some of the women that you interviewed and what their real hangups were regarding, their appearance and presenting and so forth. Does anything come to mind?
Most of the women that come into my space here looking for change are doing so out of a desire to look as young as they feel inside. So aging is showing signs, they're showing signs of aging. They feel it in their bodies and they think, this is not what I thought it would be and I want to make a change. And we are oftentimes able to have conversations with them that lead them to a place of discovery, like what you're talking about. Oh, I've never really thought about it. Lead them through the process of discovery of why are you here? What is motivating this change? Well, I want to look as young as I feel. Great. Me too. I do too. Why do we feel that way? Are you here because you woke up this morning and you looked at your reflection in the mirror and all you saw were flaws and things that needed to be fixed? Or are you here because you've done some introspection and self-reflection and you have decided that you're ready to change the way you look for a reason that's intentional and purposeful to you? Mm-hmm. So many of these decisions that we make are not conscious. And like you said, you just put on lipstick today because it's what you do.
Well, for a podcast. I normally wouldn't, but I just did it for the podcast.
Okay. We develop these habits over time. Mm-hmm. The insidious nature of social media and distraction and anti-aging industry and commerce oftentimes works its way into our brains without us realizing it through the commercials that we watch, through the ads that we see on social media. We are dealing with automatic negative thoughts, what we call automatic negative thoughts that are running in the back of our brains without even us realizing it until we have that awareness. And I write about this in the book too, because there are so many things that women in here come in thinking about themselves. I'm not good enough. I need to look younger to stay relevant. I could never do that. That's just not me, or I'm not good enough for that, ABC look, whatever it is that they're struggling with, that these negative thoughts are running in the back of their heads. And many times it's from childhood, of course, or from adolescent experiences, or from even religious trauma. Maybe you were raised in a religion where makeup was forbidden. You couldn't wear it. And then you stepped outside of that religion, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a conscience that tells you it's wrong, it's right, it's wrong, it's right. And so we have all of these things to sift through as we age. It can be overwhelming. And so my goal is to help women understand that let's just take a step back and let's just reevaluate where we are right now today and then decide what we want to do going forward.
A couple of thoughts come to mind. I think about, what does the Bible really say about beauty? And of course, we know that God judges the heart, not the outward appearance. We also know that we're made in his image and that he calls us good, beautiful creatures that he's designed after his own image. I think about how the Bible speaks of the woman to be praised is the one who fears the Lord, because beauty is fleeting. We all know these adages and so forth. I still have a personal struggle between those things because I long to be the woman who fears the Lord. And I do think that there's a beauty that radiates from that position that we take spiritually that would trump any outward kind of manifestation of so-called beauty. But then I think about Esther in the Bible and the elaborate treatments, beauty treatments that she had. And sometimes it's just really confusing for me to line it all up. And I have this ongoing dilemma. Matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, I think it is, I have a whole podcast episode about going gray. And I've always kidded about that. Like someone said, Victoria, gray is an attitude. And I thought, well, if gray's an attitude, I don't have it yet. And I look at some of my friends who have gone completely gray, and they feel free. They're so liberated. And I'm like, Lord, that's what I want, but I'm just not ready for that yet. I guess I still have some of those associations with the youthfulness. I play pickleball, and it's all about age. You're categorized by your age. There are groups 49 and below, 50 and above. You play in little divisions and sets based on your age. And they do that because of skill level. Generally, you want to play with people who you're about the same age as to have this, not to be at a real disadvantage, because a 20-year-old lady can move a lot differently than the way I can move. And just biologically speaking. So it all makes sense, but there's still a pressure to, like I'm very much aware when I'm the oldest one in a group, for example, and none of that ever used to enter my mind before, but the older I get, the more I'm aware of these things. They don't keep me from doing things, but I have to say that I am definitely more aware of them now. But I have a feeling I know what you would say anyway about gray hair, but go ahead and unpack that a little bit if you don't mind.
What do you think I would say? Tell me what you think
I think that you would say, have the color of hair with which you're comfortable. And maybe you want to try something new. Maybe it's that whole discovery process. Maybe you're so disgruntled or, fed up here with the expense of coloring your hair and highlighting. Maybe you don't want the chemical aspect of that anymore on your head. Maybe the time consumption there, you're not interested in anymore. There could be so many variables, but I would think that you might say it would be your own personal, not conviction, but your own personal level of comfort there. And for me, I'm not quite there. I think when I do decide to go gray, it might be something I do gradually instead of just I'm done with this. I think I'll take a more of a hybrid approach, maybe get a shorter hairstyle then. I'm not sure. Is that what you would say or no?
What I would say is that I too have a number of friends who have gone gray. I'm not there yet. And I may never be. I just don't know yet. It's less about going gray and more about letting go. And when you reach that space of being content and comfortable with yourself in that space, that's when going gray feels liberating. Because I've had a number of friends who have gone gray and gone back. It just wasn't for them. And they tried it and it just wasn't for them. But they didn't know until they tried it. And what I've seen in COVID really shifted this because we just simply couldn't go get our hair done. And there's a whole community out there called the Silver Sisters that have this whole online support group that just highlights the beauty of going gray. So, it used to be a thing that women did that was a sign of either lack of financial resources or depression or not caring, because again, we're talking about a youthfulness equates to beauty standard. As a society of women, we are really shifting this now, and we are gaining momentum and creating big waves that are causing the anti-aging industry to respond in a different way. We have shampoos for gray hair now. We have commercials and advertisements of women who are just have the most beautiful silver white gray hair. It's not something that's being hidden as much as it used to. And when you were talking about, the Proverbs woman, what you're talking about is where we lead you in the book, the true source of beauty. What is the true source of beauty? Can we look beyond what we see in the mirror and go a little bit deeper to who we are? And if we can't do that, what's stopping us from doing it? Is it these unattainable ideals that we are distracted by? Or is it just simply because we've never stopped to think about it? Or is it because we're outsourcing our need for validation, either to religious communities, standards, or society? Or is it just simply because we were not raised in a household that valued those character traits, and now it's up to us to redefine ourselves in a way that is genuine to what we want to be, maybe not who we've been or who we are, but what we want to be from a character-based standpoint.
So good. Some of the most beautiful women that I have ever known, and it's very funny, I think it's somewhat ironic that I don't hold others to the same beauty standards that I might hold myself to. I can see the beauty so easily in others, whereas sometimes I fail, I think, to see that in myself. I hold myself to a little bit higher standard. But I think about my grandmother, who was she was just beautiful, just beautiful. And, I had the benefit of knowing both of my grandmothers. And generally, when I speak of my grandmother, I'm talking about my dad's mom, who I knew the longest. But even I remember my mother's mom, who had extremely long hair. And I remember thinking as a little kid how unusual it seemed. She always kept it up, but occasionally she would let it down and she would comb it. But it's not like it was volume of hair even. This image is kind of just seared in my brain, where I remember she was just brushing her hair, but it seemed like she had not a lot of hair really, and it was very sparse, but also just like a lock of it that was very long. Mm-hmm. So by any standard, that might not have been beautiful, but the way she wore it and the way she took care of herself and the way she even brushed her hair and then she put it back up and, knotted it back up and secured it was just so beautiful to me. Both my grandmothers were just beautiful women, even though they were wrinkle-faced and just old looking. You think of Mother Teresa and the big gummy smile she had, that sort of thing, and you're like, it's just they radiate beauty in a way that I think really matters. And I wish that I would be that person one day. I hope that I can be that person one day where I kind of like, Lord, if I live to 90, hopefully I will have learned something by then, I guess. I don't know. But do you have anyone in your life that you see in that way who just radiates godly wisdom and beauty in that way you think of?
And my grandmother was that way. And I didn't see her often growing up, but again, long silver hair. And she raised 12 children on an 80-acre farm with no running water. And her life was hard. It was really difficult. I saw her step into moments of beauty when she closed her eyes and brushed her hair in the evenings, and she did it every night, and then she braided it before she went to bed. She was transported, and at a very young age, I recognized this, although I couldn't understand it at the time. And looking back, I can now. She was transported to a space within herself where she was caring for herself, giving herself the attention that she needed to stay centered and aligned outside of all of the distraction of whatever had to happen that day, whatever busyness or worry or stress had happened that day. When we can take time to create those moments of beauty for ourselves, then we can stay grounded and present. And it's within that space that we can really get in touch with our own true essence of beauty, which is what you're talking about showing externally. That comes through externally. We are always going to feel a little bit lost in the superficial until we get our roots set in the deep. And that's why within thoughtful aging, I thought, okay, this is a really good idea. Wouldn't it be great to shift this paradigm to something attainable? But what is that? And what does that mean? And so within this concept of thoughtful aging, there are 5 key principles.
Yes, talk about those, please.
Cultivate a growth mindset. Embrace curiosity. Practice self-compassion and acceptance. Stay mindful and grounded, because that's really what's necessary. And then be proactive and responsible for your own health, for your own beauty, for the way that you want to age. And when you were just talking about, oh, I want to be like her someday, I want to embody that wisdom someday, that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by intention. That happens by the choices that you make every day from this day forward. If you set your sights on becoming that woman, what you seek is what you see. Then you become that woman. You find ways throughout each day to embody the character traits that it takes to become that woman.
So, okay, let's keep going there. What would I literally do each day, for example? And I know you have the 5-pronged approach, and maybe you'll go into that a little bit more in detail. But practically speaking, for a woman, for a listener, someone in our audience who says, you know, I do want to make some changes here, or I want to so become aware, you know, stepping into that beauty in a new kind of way, something I've not done before. What would you tell that listener? What would she do each day?
So the true source of beauty is love. And for those of us who understand spirituality, it's God, right? And that's where we get all of our strength and all of we can cultivate wisdom through relationship with God. If the true source of beauty is love, then let me ask you this question. If I asked you to name all of the things you love, how long would it take you to name yourself?
I probably wouldn't have made my list. Though I do love myself, I would have gone to things like chocolate and spending time with my grands and serving my family, playing pickleball, hiking, my dogs. I guess I would have hit Jim in there, my husband, at a certain point. But I'm not sure I would have necessarily set myself personally.
So many times we set ourselves aside for the sake of others, for the sake of responsibility. And there are times in life when that's necessary. When you have small kids, you know, you're not going to get a hot meal for 10 years, just face it.
That's right.
Your question was, what can women do to embrace their own beauty today? Monitor how often you do use the word need in your day-to-day activities. Because if you can step outside of doing things from a place of need rather than a place of want, then you can begin to cultivate a growth mindset. You're asking yourself questions. You're getting to know yourself in a different way. You're unlocking doors and cleaning off windows that maybe you weren't even aware were there. Do you need to go unload the dishwasher? Or do you want to go unload the dishwasher? Do you need to do laundry, or do you want to do laundry? There are very few things in life that we actually need to do if we're operating from a place of choice. When you're operating from a place of choice, you're choosing how you think, you're choosing how you live, you're choosing your mental attitude, you're choosing emotions to a certain extent.
Well, I agree. Definitely the power of our thoughts. Often our thoughts will lead to emotions and feelings, which in turn can elicit behavior and really change the course of our actions, the actions that we take. You say that women all around the world struggle with feeling less than, too much, or not enough, and have lost sight of the true meaning of beauty. I have created an actionable plan based on values and character to help them love who they see in the mirror just as they are. Returning to their true source of beauty as God designed them to live is the only way to be truly free of the superficial world in which we live. So I'm going to just hone in on a second for that woman who looks in the mirror and I think you have your, and I want to talk about this too, your thoughtful aging assessment. I've not taken that, but I'm very curious. I had intended to do that. I want to know a little bit more about that. But for that woman who looks in the mirror and she's like, okay, I look too fat, or I really just don't like my teeth, or, we tend to hone in on particular things and about our appearance, or we magnify those for some reason. Taking all the theory out of it, where does that woman start? Is it even an area of repentance, like, Lord, I'm sorry that I'm looking at myself in a way that is contrary to the way you look at me? Or where is where does she start on trying to make changes? And maybe, like you said, the need, the want. No, we don't need to be thin, although being thinner is healthier in many ways. Maybe, we desire that, or we can shift that. Yes, I want to be healthy and fit. That's kind of what I tell myself. I want to be agile. I want to be able to do things with my grands. And that's a real strong motivator to me, instead of I want to look a particular way, fat, skinny, in between, though I can sometimes have those thoughts running in my head. But generally I've switched those to, no, I want to be healthy and strong. And that's why I lift the weights. I don't do it just because I want some big bulging muscle. I don't reckon I'd ever have that. But I mean, I guess I could, but I don't even desire that. I just want to be strong so that I can lift 2 gallons of milk without feeling like I'm going to, just keel over or something. So for the woman who's just looking in the mirror and having those kinds of negative thoughts about herself, what would you tell her to do? Or how to combat that?
There's an exercise in the book that I lead women through that has to do with learning to see beyond the surface, to love and accept yourself. It's a mirror exercise. And so we do address that very directly in the book because it's a very real issue. Some women can't even make eye contact with their own reflection because they're carrying shame or guilt, or they've been told by, our mothers are so influential. If you had a mother who was very harsh and judgmental, you're carrying those viewpoints with you. And until you go back and learn to reparent yourself in a way that allows you to step into a space of self-compassion and acceptance and grace, it's going to be really difficult to overcome those negative thoughts. Now, that begins with choice, which is why the first principle of thoughtful aging is cultivated growth mindset. You have to choose to be different. You have to choose something other than what you've been doing that's not working. And the way to activate that choice is to embrace curiosity. Start asking yourself questions. Why do I think this way? Is this true? And that's where those of us who follow the wisdom of Scripture have a guide to go by. where is the truth in this thought? Is there any truth in this thought? And what do we base that truth on? Is that based on society? Is it based on old programming? Is it based on a need for validation? Or is it based on the truth of Scripture that we are loved, we are valuable, and we belong here? Everybody has a place here, and we all belong here.
That is so good, Alina. I love that. I love that you said it just like that. Kind of, who are we believing and what are we believing? Just that general awareness is definitely the first step. And I really think that's important. And it's not, in a way, it kind of could seem like it will take work, I guess. It's not just there's no real quick fix here, is there? We really do have to say, I desire to become healthier, if I can use that word, in this area of my life. And most areas of our lives where we want to become healthier require an investment on our part. But surely it would be worth it because there would be freedom there. I did have one other question, though. There seems to also be a movement that would, and I don't know how to say this, kind of like gently or gingerly or with discretion, but like some people might just say, okay, I weigh 250 pounds and that's okay. I'm going to celebrate me. Is that, the way I might look at it, I might say that would be an unfortunate way to look at that condition because I see it as not healthy. So I don't want to call something healthy when really it's not healthy, and it may adversely impact quality and state of living and those sorts of things. So what I'm trying to kind of genderly ask and respectfully ask and non-judgmentally ask is, what would you say to that person who maybe justifying something that's not healthy, all on the terms of it's just the way I am kind of thing? Does that make sense?
So again, I'll go back to the fact that right and wrong has no place in this conversation. And when you apply judgment based on your own ideals and beliefs onto another person, you're judging them based on right and wrong.
But I'm not trying to do it based on right and wrong. It would be just like what a physician might tell someone. Like you may need to lose weight, for example. Your liver can't withstand this, your heart, your knees, that sort of thing. Is that morality, or is that just someone concerned for your well-being?
So you're right. That's a conversation that physician would have with that patient, but that's not our place. So if somebody is saying, I weigh 250 pounds and I love myself and this is great and everything's fine, can you look beyond the surface of that person? Can you look beyond what you see and see through a lens of compassion and grace? Knowing what you know is not what they know. So you might be a kidney expert or a liver expert or a health and wellness and nutrition expert. And you might be able to say to them in that moment, you are so wrong because of this and this and this, and these are the beliefs I hold, and this is science, and this is what I know to be true. But we're not addressing that person's belief system in that conversation. We're addressing that person. And that person is a person who is worthy of love, acceptance, and validation, just like all of the rest of us are. And when we meet those needs for each other, love, acceptance, and validation, then we can begin to build the relationship that allows us to have those thought-provoking conversations outside of a place of judgment based on a connection and relationship. We live in an age where we are fooled into thinking that there's this illusion of connectivity that equates to community, and that is not true.
Can you explain
Connectivity
that a
does
little
not.
bit?
Sure. And so we pick up our phones and we jump onto Facebook and we look at what Susan and Sally and Jane are doing. And we think because we know what they're doing that we've got, we're all in this little community, that connection that is afforded to us in this digital age creates a community.
Gotcha.
That is not where community is formed. Community is formed in the face-to-face interactions that call for transparency and vulnerability. And that doesn't happen online. That happens face to face. That is how we grow. We grow together through transparency and vulnerability. And I'm in a different place in life than you are. You're in a different place than someone else is because of the life experience that we've had and the knowledge that we hold and the wisdom that we've gained. Right?
Right.
Wisdom is knowledge integrated. Knowledge lived as wisdom becomes wisdom. So I might understand that eating McDonald's 3 times a day is harming your body.
Right.
But the person who eats McDonald's 3 times a day, do you think they woke up that morning and they said, oh, I think I'm going to suffer and struggle and feel bad today. I'll go eat McDonald's 3 times. No, they didn't. So if I approach them and I say, you're hurting your body, you're eating McDonald's 3 times a day, you're killing yourself, are they going to hear me? No, they're not. Because I'm creating a defensive place. If I go to that person and I say, how are you feeling? Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm tired all the time. How much water have you had today? Or, well, I have some thoughts about that. Would you like to hear them? If you don't get permission to share your opinion, you don't have permission to share your opinion. So there are ways that we can work as women to step outside of judgment and relate in the safety of transparency and vulnerability to form connections and community that sustain us through the aging process. And that's really what it's all about.
What were you hoping an outcome would be from this work, from your book, Thoughtful Aging? What did you I think we know who you were writing and kind of you uncorked you took the lid off here of so many things that need to be articulated. You've just done that so well, and you're kind of covering all the bases and encouraging us to let's look at this whole thing of beauty and thoughtful aging in a brand new way. And you're really equipping us to do that with your 5-pronged approach as well. But after that, what was your hope in actually writing this book? What was the outcome you were desiring for those who read it?
Healing. There's so much healing to happen in this space of beauty, of identity, of intentional living, of aging in itself. There's healing that needs to happen here. And I'm hoping that this book will be a catalyst for spiritual healing, for thought healing, for perspective shifts that allow women to embrace their true beauty and understand that they belong here, that they no longer need to outsource their validation, that they have the ability to affect change within their own little bubble, within their own little world that can have a ripple effect for generations to come.
Speaking of generations to come, how would you counsel young mothers? Let's say they have, for their daughters, let's say they've got a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old daughter. How would you counsel them? What would you say to that young mother about teaching her daughters about beauty?
But you can't teach what you don't know. So if there are gaps in your own knowledge base, fill your gaps before you try and fill someone else's. If you're not where you want to be, forge that path so that your daughters can see you actively growing and understand that that is a never-ending process.
Is there anything that you wouldn't do as a mother of daughters, young daughters? Anything you would avoid?
Comparison. If I had to choose one thing, it would be comparison. There's never been a time in history, and maybe every generation has said this, but there's never been a time in history where we have been in more desperate need for the armor of God. And if we can pray that over our daughters, if we can pray that over ourselves, we can approach parenting. And I've had 3 children and I have 3 grandchildren, and I understand the struggle.
Yes.
And if we can approach parenting from a grounded and centered place. Rarely do we ever have all the answers as a parent, but I don't believe we're called to. I believe that we're called to help our children understand and learn who they are and who they were meant to be in the world, and to learn from them as much as they learn from us. And when it gets to the point where they pull back and they just don't want to have anything to do with you, and oh my goodness, things are shifting and changing, we can view that as a challenge, or we can view that as an opportunity to refocus our energy on ourselves while monitoring them with the goal of keeping the communication lines open. If you can keep the communication lines open, then you're doing your job. And there's that period of adolescence where, that in and of itself is just a monumental task to keep the communication lines open.
Yeah, so good. Well, Alina, tell everyone where they can get a hold of you, where they can take that assessment, and how can they buy your book?
I am online at thoughtfulagingbook.com. The book is found there. It's found on Amazon. You can link to the assessment through that website as well, thoughtfulagingbook.com. And I have social media channels, Instagram, Thoughtful Aging Book, Facebook. Admittedly, not as active as they could be, but...
What's the next book for you? I wonder, what's next?
I've been thinking about that. And I think it has something to do with reconciliation. As we move through the aging process and take a look back at where we've been and how we have become who we are, I see such a danger of getting stuck in grief and shame and regret. And regret lives, I think, in that tension between awareness and accountability. And thoughtful aging is all about restoring honor to the aging process through radical self-acceptance. But I think we may need to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that to really bring a little more context to what that means to climb your way out of that space of guilt and shame and regret.
Wow. Sounds wonderful. Such good work that you're doing. Thank you so much, Alina, for coming on this show today. We really appreciate that. God's blessings over your ministry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.